Welcome to All Things Greater Burlington, where you will hear from the movers, shakers, and changemakers that are moving Greater Burlington forward. Here is your host, Stephen Brody.
Welcome to All Things Greater Burlington. Burlington Civic Music celebrates its 94th year of providing a series of outstanding and varied programs to entertain, enrich, and educate audiences from Southeast Iowa and Western Illinois. Opening its first concert in 1929, artists first appeared in churches and schools. Incorporated as a 501c3 in 1984, the now nonprofit association continued its original mission to popularize good music in the community, further artistic advancement in the community, find funding to present great concerts to the community, and ensure permanency in the concert series. And I'm sure anybody who has been around the Greater Burlington area knows very well that they are living this out every single year with the quality and the caliber and the talent that has been brought here to the area. It's my pleasure to have on today Barbara McRoberts, the program director for Burlington Civic Music. And Barbara, thank you again for taking the time to be with us today.
My pleasure, seriously.
So, as I said, 94 years.
I know.
For Burlington Civic Music. Congratulations.
Thank you. And you were hoping for maybe 194, but we are certainly looking forward to continuing the legacy, which actually 94 years makes us really the oldest arts organization in this area. Yeah. That at least has the same kind of mission.
Yes.
Because you spoke to wanting to enhance the quality, the enrichment, the educational aspect, and certainly we've been trying to do that.
Yes.
And every now and then I kind of call us eclectic, just to throw that one in. We should use all those E's.
Yes. Well, and you do it so well. I am fascinated by the diversity that you do bring to the area. Maybe when you hear of a civic music association, it might conjure up a certain idea of the type of music, but you certainly do not stay within a box.
No, we don't. I don't think we have ever since 1929, frankly. Mm-hmm. The goal was, I think, diversity in terms of types of music, genres of music, if you will. Back to the beginning, if I might. Civic music actually was founded by a group of people in Burlington, Iowa, who had learned about the Civic Concert Association out of New York.
Okay.
And it was actually a subsidiary of Columbia Artist Management. So it was a twofold purpose.
Interesting.
Columbia Artist Management wanted to take the arts and their artists, key their artists out into places like Burlington.
Yeah.
Wauwatosa, Wisconsin, because we didn't have that. We did not have the quality of the live performing professional arts that they did in Chicago, let's say, or New York. Of course. So what happened was a woman from Burlington went to Chicago right around that time in 1929, met with this group that came in to talk about this concert association and would Burlington be interested in being part of it. She comes back, meets with a group. There were, I think, to begin with, about 8 board members that said, yes, let's sign up. Well, what they signed up for was a very interesting, I think, concept at the time. They were to sell membership subscriptions to a 4-concert series, and the more memberships they sold, the more money they would raise to then have essentially the concert association say, well, you have $15,000, and so that is going to entitle you to have these artists.
Oh, right.
And many of the artists were contracted to Columbia Art Management.
Sure.
So that's kind of how it began, which is a wonderful idea not only for Columbia artists to get their artists out because they needed performance, but also for Burlington to be able to be part of a greater organization trying to do the same thing.
It was a great incentive to bring top-notch talent to the area.
When you talk about we don't really have quite a niche, I think to your point, people think of a civic music organization or something like that as being kind of always chamber and classic music, and we don't understand it because we don't teach it. Maybe we don't listen to it that much anymore.
Maybe an orchestra,
yes,
right?
And that's true. And what they would bring in at first, though, was a ballet. They would bring in an orchestra.
Yeah.
They would bring in, and this was particularly something that Hazel Woody brought into the mix, a Broadway musical, if there was one, and a comedian.
Okay.
I mean, we had Bob Hope, Red Skelton.
Really?
In here.
Okay.
So that maybe gets us more into the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
But in 1929, it was, let's get not the same kind of artist out there.
Yeah.
And they didn't. And if anybody wants to know who all these artists were, tell them to call me. Otherwise, we'd be here until next week.
Yeah.
Because we really have had a roster of recognizable names. I think what's happened maybe over time is that there are not as many recognizable names touring.
Yeah.
And we know why. It's too expensive.
Yes.
They're too expensive.
Right.
And there's not a company backing them like there was 90 years ago.
Do you know, Barbara, when that model sort of broke down where it was exclusive to that one record company per se?
If I could give a date to that, I would, but even in the research I've done and what I've seen, that one of our esteemed board members, Lori Polly, who did put a lot of this history together, I would say probably it was pretty much over by the 70s.
I see.
And the Civic Music Association then was starting to work with other agents, not just Columbia artists.
Yeah.
And the results pretty much the same. But what also happened with that mix, as opposed to paying, let's just say, the Concert Association the $15,000 that they had raised, which covered all the costs. The only cost then to the organization here in the 20s, 30s, 40s, and 50s was really possibly housing and some food.
Yeah.
But the rest of it was covered.
Okay.
They even sent posters from New York.
Oh, nice.
Well, guess what? That doesn't happen anymore. So to your point in your introduction, you commented that one of the things we are now doing is having to raise funds.
Yes.
So that is one of the, what I would say, prime responsibilities, not only of a civic music board, but of any arts board.
Right.
We are raising money constantly.
And how do you go about doing that throughout the year? What does that look like?
A very busy schedule.
Okay.
But we're very fortunate in Burlington, and the Burlington community knows this, to have 2 or 3 rather wealthy family foundations of people like the Woody, like the Murrays, pardon me, the one that slipped my mind, and also a couple of banks that are here.
Yes.
The community college, the hospital at times. We have had to raise close to 50% of our budget. So if our budget's on the high side, $200,000, we have to raise $100,000.
Okay.
And that $100,000 has got to come from our advertising, from our fundraising, from any special events we might have. And that's how that works.
Yeah.
So you'll look at one of our programs and you'll see in the back of it that the John Woody Foundation has sponsored this concert.
Yes.
Southeastern Community Concert has sponsored this. So we go out, and that's the board. Mm-hmm. Members of the board go out and call on companies and also call on the foundations.
You are the program director.
Yes.
So how much fun falls under that role that you've undertaken as program director?
Well, once in a while, I might be accused of having all the fun.
Okay.
Yes, because I do initiate the calls for the most part.
Okay.
I've had a little bit of a background in this before I came to Burlington, so I have a knowledge, I guess I would say, of the artist community, the agent community. Also, our Burlington board was very receptive to the fact that I attend regional arts management conferences where artists showcase, where all the agents set up. It's like any other convention you go to. So our president, Kay Conrad, and I have attended several of them in Minneapolis, Indianapolis, that kind of thing, so that we do firsthand get to see something. For example, we have presented Gentry, which is considered the gentleman's quartet. I saw them, I think, in Minneapolis several years ago. We brought in Farewell Angelina, which is a really wonderful country group of women. In fact, they were they were presented for a Grammy. They didn't win. But I heard them at one of these conferences. So it can start there. It can start with a lot of research of just, knowing the industry and knowing where the agents are. And
that was going to be one of my questions, was how do you find the talent? And you just said that's a great source, is going to those.
It is.
Going to those. And those still happen every year.
They have happened every year until COVID interrupted it.
Okay.
So that goes back, we're going back almost 4 years in terms of big conventions. There's one in Indianapolis that Kay and I are not going to be able to attend, as luck would have it. We have a performance that night here. Okay. So we'll miss that one this year.
Yeah.
But that's a wonderful way to network because it's personal. You get to meet the agents, and I certainly have booked concerts with people I have never met, but they all have web pages. And you can check them out through other agents.
Yeah.
So it's if I didn't enjoy doing it, because it is a lot of detail work, I probably wouldn't still be doing it this many years later. But I've learned a lot over the first time when I was a presenter.
When you're at some of these shows, Barbara, are you, for lack of a better word, are you competing for talent with bigger cities, bigger towns, or are the shows you're at that you're going and meeting the agents, are these more smaller micropolitan areas as compared to Chicago, New York, Los Angeles?
Yes and yes.
Okay.
So yes, we are in competition with even the artists that might be going to Chicago. Okay, that's the yes to that. Then the other side of that is that artist might want to go to St. Louis, okay?
Yeah.
And they might want to go from Chicago to St. Louis. And guess what happens between Chicago and St. Louis? Burlington, Iowa.
Yeah.
And what a nice little 3-4 hour drive in a van to Burlington overnight and then on down to St. Louis.
Yeah.
I just talked with, and that's what's happening with the Sophia Philharmonic Symphony. Their agent is with Columbia Artists Music, and I can share that. Yeah. So when Andrew calls me, he says, I have something you can't pass up. And here's where we get into then, we might have a fee that's less than a major orchestra because we're only one night, but they need a place to stay. One of the things that I find fascinating when I go back and read about Burlington Civic Music in the 20s and 30s, they brought in Ballet Russe. Guess how the company got here? 8 freight cars. I'm not kidding, to bring all of their equipment, all the costumes, etc. Yeah. They don't do that anymore. We don't see 8 freight cars coming into Burlington Memorial Auditorium because that has also changed. The industry's changed dramatically. They know that whether it's Burlington or St. Louis, are going to bring in an orchestra that has 70 players. They're going to have touring buses. Yep. They're going to have over-the-road trucks. Burlington Memorial Auditorium is known as a 2-truck theater, which means we can handle 2 semis for a show, but we're not big enough to handle any show that's any bigger than that. So that kind of speaks to we might not get the latest thing out of Broadway if they're big shows.
Sure.
And when I check on them, that's now one of the things that I ask. And a couple of agents that I have worked with, Barbara, you cannot do that show because it's a 3 or 4 truck show. Oh. So then I talk again maybe and say, can they reshuffle the truck and only use some of the sets? We did do that with My Fair Lady quite a few years ago.
Okay.
And we were able to put My Fair Lady
and
on.
Do they typically stay in Burlington that night before they take off the next day?
They do. If they're not traveling with, for example, if it's a big group, they will stay in their touring buses because they're sleepers. Yeah. But for example, we're bringing in a DSQ, Dallas String Quartet, on September 20th. They will be staying out here at our hotel complexes.
Nice.
And so we've had a wonderful working arrangement with them in terms of even if we bring them in on a Saturday, which for some people it's casino night. Well, maybe they might want to come down to Civic Music. But no, we house them here. We have our board of directors really is a volunteer board.
Yeah.
Although there are a couple of us who do receive a stipend for the work we do, and that's our data manager who does all the ticket work and myself.
Yeah.
But when I look at the contract, I have to have somebody that wants to work with hospitality because we feed. If it's an orchestra of 70 to 80 people, we feed them.
Okay, so
if it's just
involved
six,
with that.
we're involved with that. We're involved with booking, the hotel rooms and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
We're often involved in transportation. Burlington's not the easiest place to get to, but it's a small group.
Do they give you requirements like this person requires this type of room, this person requires this type of food? I mean, because there are artists that can be very picky about that.
I've had contracts that read that way.
Uh-huh.
At least I haven't had anybody that has to have green jelly beans. But no, yes. When you get into we have a vegan, we have vegetarians, now they'll tell me how many. So if there are 12 people coming and they're not all just going to be, you can do whatever you want to do. They'll stipulate. They really will. It doesn't get as specific and as difficult as it did when I first did this.
Okay. That's good.
But
you have stories.
Yeah, I have stories. I have a couple stories, and probably some other time we'll share those.
Sure. Now, how does
it's fun.
How does it work, Barbara, with performing groups that are from out of the country? Does that require anything extra special, or is it simply because you're working through an agency that all of that is kind of taken care of?
That is all taken care of through the agency.
Okay.
So, for example, on this program, we have the Red Hot Chili Pipers, and they're coming in from Scotland, of course.
Uh-huh.
And then we have the Sophia, which is they're going to be coming in the spring. The visas and all of the kinds of things that are negotiated are done by the agent, and they are done probably a good 1.5 to 2 years ahead of when they actually come into the country.
Wow. Okay.
I have not specifically had any trouble with any of that.
Yeah.
We only had one show. Well, Burlington Civic Music did. We had one show that canceled on us because the group was coming from Switzerland. And they had come into the country and they've done September through December, and they decided, well, we're going home. So they didn't do the second half of the tour.
Oh, wow.
So then the agent calls and said, we're very sorry. There'll be no additional charges. We will provide what we provide normally, which might be posters or something like that. And they did. They provided talent at the same price.
I was going to say, I would think that they'd be on the hook to provide a replacement.
Yeah, they are.
Okay.
They are. Yeah.
Yeah. That is and is that part negotiated in the contract as well about the visas and passports or whatever fees like that? In order to bring them over, they've got to do this, and so that's going to be included in the cost.
We never see that. At least I never have. I've never seen that. That's part of their fee, probably, to be sure.
Yeah.
But in terms of even, for example, transportation, when we've had a couple of issues with that, because one of the things that some chambers have will be like a tour bus. And so we borrowed tour buses before when we have to get somebody here from Peoria or Cedar Rapids, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And that is specified in the contract. So what I have tried to do, particularly in the last few years, and this is since COVID, and that is if there is a transportation issue, I will suggest we would rather do a buyout. We have difficulty getting people from the airport, which means best for you to rent a van. And that's a negotiated fee.
Yeah.
It's outside the regular fee.
How far in advance do you need to book these groups?
Well, right now I'm looking at 2025.
Okay.
So, and that again usually is artists coming in from out of the country.
Yes.
For example, I know the Pipers, for example, only travel in this country in February and March, 2 main months. They might get into April, and they go back home.
Okay.
Don't always know that about all the artists and who's available.
So typically, is it a year in advance, a year and a half in advance?
Year to a year and a half.
Okay.
Yeah.
Would you say that that's normal for the industry to book
Mhm.
that far in order to get them?
It has been, excuse me.
Yeah.
It has been again until COVID. And now we are not doing, I'm trying right now to see if I can nail anything down for 25. I'm looking at 26 and going, that's way out there. And we're not seeing a lot. We're not seeing a lot out there. We're just not.
Yeah.
We used to.
Yeah. How do you sell Burlington when you go to the shows and you meet with folks? Right? What do you say? How do you sell Burlington to tell people, hey, I'm from Burlington, Iowa. I think it would be wonderful for you to send your talent to us.
I talk about the fact that it's one of these lovely little cities on the Mississippi. And that it is one that when you are here, you're going to be treated like your queens and kings, and you're going to want to come back. Mm-hmm. We have an auditorium that seats 1,500. When it was first built, it was over 2,000. And we have nice accommodations. We love you here.
Yeah.
Good staff to work with, good volunteer board, all of those kinds of things. You try and make it work for them. But I like talking about the lovely little city and I do say the muddy Mississippi. I really do.
And it rhymes. The lovely little city
on the muddy Mississippi. Oh, don't start me dancing and singing. And we don't have enough room for that here. But one of the things that's interesting to me is how fascinated that these artists are when they realize that Burlington Memorial Auditorium sits right on the Mississippi River.
Yeah.
The Cubans, we had the Cubans in here, they couldn't believe it. They were in awe. Yeah. So were the Russians. They were absolutely in awe.
Because they've probably heard of the Mississippi River,
they have.
I would
think, of course they have.
Right?
Oh, of course they
have.
have.
Now this is the first time that they get to actually see it for themselves.
They actually see it. Well, they go out and take pictures.
Yeah.
I mean, wish I could remember the name of the group. They really did. They got the cast all together during a rehearsal and said, we have to go outside right now. The sun's right there. Let's go out and take a picture.
Yeah. I would imagine that is one of the biggest selling points. As you're right there on the Mississippi.
I think the other thing is that I've heard about this, about being in the crossroads of to and from.
Yes.
And I think that is also a selling point. And that is, it's great for me because I can do some negotiation with fees.
Yeah.
But between whether it's, I don't care whether they're going to go to Des Moines or Omaha or all the way out to Cheyenne, we are a leg and the highways are good.
Do the agents know that ahead of time? Like when you're talking to them, do they already know the tour stops, or are they just like putting a mental note saying, oh, okay, you're between these two. And so if it works out and they're coming, then we will do our best to get Burlington in there as well?
That's a good question because it happens a couple of ways. For example, one agent in particular sends me the tour dates, and she's doing it right now for what the Red Hot Chili Peppers are doing. She still has one date to fill for them.
Yeah.
So she gives all the dates of where this group's going to be and what she needs to fill. Yeah. And she sends it out to all the presenters. Okay, so we would know. I will get a call from an agent because they know where Burlington is and go, by the way, Barbara, we are bringing this group. We're going to be close to you. We're going to be in St. Louis. I just did this.
Yeah.
Just did that Friday. We're going to be in St. Louis with the St. Louis Symphony on this date, and we're going to be in someplace in Wisconsin. We have 2 open dates. Take a look at them.
Yeah.
So it's both the agent initiation, or if I know, for example, that our group really, really wants to see somebody being brought back.
Yeah.
Texas Tenors is a good example. They were so successful here the first time they came back. We've had them back 5 times.
Wow. And
I go back into some of the history. We've had Doc Severinsen has been here several times. Simon Estes has been here several times. We've had Farewell Angelina came back a couple times. David Kroll, our very own, is very, very well thought of, and we'd like to bring him back again. So,
is there a certain genre that seems to be more popular than others, or is it the diversity itself that just makes it popular to be involved with Burlington Civic Music? Because again, you talk about eclectic.
Right.
You certainly have that diversity. So I'm guessing there probably isn't.
The comments that I get, and I get very few complaints, although we do have them.
Yeah.
Why don't you do so-and-so? Or why haven't we seen this? Or what's going on with this one? Or I didn't really like that one at all.
Yeah.
So I think the goal is to kind of fulfill this mission, and that is to bring the entertainment into this community that is going to expand their horizons, if nothing else. And sideline will be to educate. And we do have a very healthy educational outreach program.
Okay.
We really do. We have a lot of students come in, and they're going to get to see the one night in Memphis.
Okay.
We're going to have a student concert for that. And we're going to have also a student concert for the Red Hot Chili Pipers.
Nice.
But
so that's typical.
I think
what you do is like when a performer is in town, you'll have something special for students to come.
We
Nice.
try. It'd be nice if we get it with all of them, but not all artists are willing to do a student concert.
Yeah.
Like the Symphony Philharmonic is not going to be doing a student concert. They can't get set up, to do all of it. Some of it is a issue. They can't get in. DSQ, which is going to be doing the Bridgerton music from Netflix, they're good. We've had them in here before. They have electrified string instruments. They're noisy, but they're fun. But they can't do it because they're coming from Indianapolis. They can't get in here in time to do both. But I think probably from the get-go, from 29 all the way through our history, we have tried to do different kinds of genre. I would say moving into the 21st century, the musical tastes of this area have changed.
Okay.
I think they have, and I think they lean more towards country, more towards the popular kind of music. I don't think we would love to be doing a Broadway show every now and then, but they have gotten so expensive. I don't care whether they're 2 trucks or 5 trucks. Because you're looking at, if we have a budget of, I'm going to say $150,000, and we want to do 8 shows, which we have done in the past. We're now this year, this coming season is 6. Mm-hmm. We're looking at maybe going to 5. Okay. And that's driven by dollars.
Sure.
The last show I looked at that could come in here that was small enough was $45,000 just for the fee. That's just the fee.
Oh my gosh.
That is not going to pay the rent. It's not going to do hospitality.
Yeah.
Again, that would be a touring bus, so we would not need to have rooms for them.
Yeah.
But you're looking at over $50,000 for one show.
Oh my goodness.
And that's not sustainable for a civic music budget that's only maybe $150,000.
Right.
It wasn't sustainable 10 years ago either.
It
was not.
I wouldn't think so. Does the board, Barbara, have any sort of goals, fundraising goals, something that you look, because you say you're a nonprofit, you got to raise money. So is there talks about something in particular that you're wanting to, a pot at a gold at the end of the rainbow, whatever it is that you're kind of seeking?
I think one of the things that has happened over time, and that happened again under the auspices of Lori Pauley and Ruth Ann Sandrock, was that we had an endowment established.
Okay.
So that was a goal. And that was a goal to sustain the organization.
Yeah.
So that goal has been met. We've also had goals in terms of trying to increase that we did a campaign several years ago in terms of we were left some money. So we had a goal in terms of matching funds, that type of thing.
Yeah. We
are beginning to talk about doing some sort of special event. If my board's listening, don't pay any attention to me, board. I am not trying to scare you. They'll all go, what does she think she wants us to do now? But that has been something that has been actually suggested by a couple of new board members. Why aren't we doing some sort of like kickoff event? Usually when we have done that, it has not been a fundraiser.
I see.
It has been more celebratory.
Okay.
Like we had a very festive champagne opening when we had our, I think it was 85th. We called it our Sapphire season.
Yeah.
Well, we're getting close to 100.
Yes, ma'am.
And it would be interesting to see what maybe we do for 95 that might lead into 100.
Right.
You've just tantalized me and maybe the board.
Okay. Well,
to dream.
That's a pleasure to do that. So we're just about out of time, Barbara,
Okay.
and we just about have time to just let people know how to get a hold of Burlington Civic Music. If they want more information, is there a website, a Facebook page, a phone number? Maybe yes. But how do they get a hold of you?
Yes. I don't give out my own phone number, but if anybody wants to find me, they can find me. Just call the chamber. Mr. Brody will figure out how to find me. We have a website, which is burlcivicmusic.com. It does need some updating, although we do have at least the pictures out there of what the upcoming season is.
Yeah.
We are on Facebook.
Okay.
We have a phone number, which is 752-0336, prefaced by 319.
Yeah.
So we have a data manager who's in charge of tickets, and she will get back to everybody if they call her. And there are links, there are links to the auditorium, and there are links to a lot of things on our webpage.
Yeah.
So,
well, and we do appreciate, Kay Conrad's involvement and seeing her at our events. And we appreciate the information being sent to our organization that we can put that in our Friday facts so folks know about it. So that partnership is very important.
Yes.
So, Barbara, it's a pleasure to have you. And thank you so much for sharing all things Burlington Civic Music with us.
Well, it's been my pleasure. I've enjoyed it very much. Thank you.
You're welcome. And thank you so much for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe wherever you listen to our podcasts, and give us a call at the Greater Burlington Partnership if you have any suggestions on future programming. Until then, thanks for listening. We'll see you next time on All Things Greater Burlington.
Have been listening to All Things Greater Burlington with Stephen Brody. Be sure to hit the subscribe button to catch all new episodes. To learn more about All Things Greater Burlington, visit greaterburlington.com/ATGB.